Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of Come On Ref. I think we have a really good show for you guys today. I always think we have a really good show. I say that every week. I know it sounds like, clockwork, but I do. I think we have a great show. We are going to talk about we got to get to there's some disappointing stuff going on in baseball right now. Some of the most reliable franchises are not looking so hot right now, man. The teams that you always see there competing for playoff spots aren't looking great. Some are historically bad. I mean, historically bad. And a little bit later in the show, we're going to get to, college football, Ohio State. We're going to talk about the Buckeyes. We'll preview the season a little bit. We'll talk about is there a starting quarterback yet? How many wins do we think the Buckeyes are going to end up with? We'll talk about some things like that. But first, kind of as always, just, I don't know, a little housekeeping. I want to talk about some stuff here going on locally that I think is pretty fun. Listen, Tennis in the Land is here, you guys. Are you guys hip to this, man? It's going on the west bank of the Flats, right behind the aquarium. They have a temporary, tennis dedicated stadium all set up down there. I wish I could make it down. I think this is so cool, man.
Who's
a women's tennis event. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, where did this come from? Who chose Cleveland? Who chose the Flats? Why? It's a big deal, but that's why it's a big deal. I'm not familiar with anything in the Flats as far as tennis players showing up for a tournament. Yeah. What is this actually about? Do you have any idea?
I wish I knew a little more about it. I just think it's really cool that I think the WTA is even considering Cleveland for an event, and that they would bring some of the top players in here. I mean, we've seen some really big names some have scratched for injury, but you'll have that. But again, I just think it's something really cool that's going on in the Flats. It's really an accessible area. I mean, we go down to the aquarium all the time. We take our kids to the aquarium all the time. They love it. It's easy to get in and out of there. I think it's a good spot for something like this, right on the waterfront there. I think that's a cool spot. So regardless of, I'm not a tennis guy. I'll admit it. I'm not a big tennis guy, but I think this is really cool.
My most tennis knowledge is Wii tennis.
Are the Williams sisters?
I'm not the biggest tennis guy, but I do think that in general this is just big for Cleveland because the Flats in general deserve so much more exposure. It's a really great area. It's on the come up, and I just think if we can keep getting events like this, it can really kind of change the perception almost of Cleveland. It is a place that can get these big time tournaments and events like this. I think, and it going well will also go a long way for us getting more events like this as well.
I mean, and we've seen for years, how passionate Cleveland sports fans are with their sports. So if you can get tennis, and tennis is a growing sport. If you can get that in Cleveland, people are going to be passionate about it because they always are. Cleveland fans are always super passionate.
Yeah, even though there's not a local team to cheer for, I think that just sports fans in general in Cleveland are just kind of rabid to. I mean, we'll watch anything. I think that's cool.
Hopefully, it goes well. And that way, they'll bring it back. Sounds like a great idea.
And with the weather we've been getting this week as well, I mean, it's the tennis players are going to get a nice tan as well. I mean, I think it's great to see, like you guys said, that the tournament is in Cleveland. And Cleveland has just had a great summer weather. So bringing tennis and outside sport, I think the players are really going to enjoy it, have a great experience, and will want to come back next year.
Yeah, luckily through some of the air quality stuff, because that could have played, that could have been a big factor in that. As far as rain goes, I think they do have. I think they said the courts are covered, so I think they're pretty well sheltered from any weather situation that they would have down there, other than the air quality, obviously. But yeah, that's going on. It's the Nautica Entertainment Complex. It's 2000 Sycamore Street in Cleveland. It's going on through this Saturday, the 26th. So if you guys can get down there, I would check out the websites, tennisintheland.com. Get some tickets, roll down there and see what it's all about. And maybe on next week's show, comment and let us know what you guys thought, man. All right.
You know how much tickets are?
I do not know how much tickets.
A lot of money.
My only problem with attending tennis is, don't you have to be quiet the whole time?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to.
Until someone scores, you have to be dead silent. I thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
It's kind of like golf.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show. I just think that's ridiculous to have to be quiet.
Well, and for some reason, there's a cool thing with tennis going around where if you can get on camera chugging a beer, you can go pretty viral and get famous. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing.
That's kind of big at every sporting event right now.
That's kind of a thing at every sporting event. You're right.
Or when one guy asks a woman tennis player, "Will you marry me?" That gets him famous too.
That'll do it too. That'll do it too. So we talked about many ways to go viral. So get tickets, get down to the Nautica Entertainment Complex, go down there and go viral. All right, watch some tennis, go viral, and tell them, "Come on, ref sent you." That's important too. I do want to move on though. I think that's really cool, but I do want to move on. A little bit of soccer news. Women's national team coach. I want to say resigned. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Ended up they agreed to mutually.
Thank gosh.
Right.
Thank gosh.
Well, he basically he kissed a player on the lips after they won, and he gave an apology. But Spain's president said "Hey, that's not a good enough apology. We need more from you, or you need to resign." Spain's president, Pedro Sanchez, I believe, is their president. He's like, "Hey, you got to give a more sincere apology. This is not good enough for us to represent us." And he's like, "If you don't, then you got to resign." So, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Spain's coach, but it's not looking good for him.
Okay. And as far as our coach, I mean, who do you think, Ben, do you have any idea? Do you have a list of names?
I actually do. I was looking at that before the show starts. The big one is he used to coach Leeds last year. I mean, Leeds is a Premier League team.
Okay.
His name's Jesse Marsh. He's well respected in the United States community. But the big one is the Netherlands coach. With how far they made it this year, there's talks that she might come over to the United States and be the United States coach.
Do you know, Ben, is she also a ventriloquist? Does she have that ability too? No. Okay.
I have no idea.
You're amazing. I think that's amazing that you can do that. I don't know. I don't know. Is there a set direction they're trying to go in? I mean,
I think
they need someone. Do they need someone younger to try to relate to this younger group of players that's coming up?
I don't think it's someone younger. I just think they need someone that kind of fits our play style. And our coach kind of got away from that in this World Cup.
Yeah.
Maybe he chose favorites.
Maybe the new coach could pay a little more attention to substitutions and playing.
Yeah.
Time. Yeah.
I mean, he literally chose players that weren't playing well at a club level, and he still chose to bring them to the World Cup. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a tough look.
And I mean,
so can we rewind right there? I had a question for you. Can we rewind?
Go ahead.
So the coach is a guy, right?
Yes.
And he's coaching the women. And he's one of the players on the list. Right? That all transpired.
That was Spain's coach, not U.S.
Yeah, that was Spain's coach.
Oh, okay. I heard all this. I want a
different headline.
Spain's looking for a new coach as well. So.
They are.
Yeah.
Different reasons.
That's why I'm thinking, wait.
Coincidentally. No, I know. When I first heard that too, I was like, "What?"
That's two of the bigger programs going, two of the best countries right now. They're both countries. That's a pretty big deal.
I mean, coincidentally, our coach is actually getting looked at by Spain. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
so he'll be a substitution there. That's ironic. Listen. That's great. I mean, we'll obviously have an update for you if they hire a coach. We'll let you know. If there's any development there, we'll keep our eye on it and we'll kind of let you guys know. But I do want to kick it over to the NFL for a little bit, and specifically, kind of locally with the Browns. Speaking of the Browns, I mean, can the Browns kick it? Can they kick it?
No, they can't.
No, they can't.
I'm gonna be brief. All I'm gonna say is, if Cade York had made the kicks in preseason that he was supposed to have made, Browns would be 3-0 as opposed to 1-1-1. And if we're talking your kicking game is the reason between wins and losses, that is something that can translate into the regular season easily. It's a special team.
It did last year. They lost some games because York couldn't make field goals.
We've been losing games.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's the starters or if against the third team. Kickers get paid to win games, and I think at this point right now, Cade York is more of a liability to the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
than an asset.
A lot of times because a lot of times people say, oh, preseason struggles don't translate to regular season struggles. But kicker, there isn't a first, second, and third team. There's only the
Yeah,
first.
so just you.
We barely have
Yeah,
it.
usually what happens the first of a preseason game doesn't matter all that much, except for when it's your first team kicker who's going to be trotting out there for game-winning field goals during the regular season. That's the same guy.
Now, correct me if I could be wrong, but I think I'm right on this. Every time they go out and kick an extra point field goal in the preseason, it's first team snapper, first team holder, right? I mean, there's no
no backup special teams unit for the Browns.
Okay, so yeah, it's not a time.
I should say at least for the Browns.
Yeah, they do have two. They do have two punters. There is a second punter, but
yeah, some teams bring in.
But York is getting the majority of first team reps.
Yeah, some teams bring in other punters and other kickers. Like Pittsburgh's starting punter Presley Harvin didn't like I think he has 2 punts all preseason that came in the first half against the Bills. Or like the second half or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but we have 2 punters and 2 kickers on our roster right now.
So let me just ask you. I mean, obviously that screams special teams questions, right? But the big question, I think, do you guys have any confidence that Cade York is going to get it going in time? I mean, is there any way?
Truly, no. I don't think like the Browns, like ever since the Browns parted ways with Phil Dawson years ago, they really haven't had a steady kicker. And I mean, we know the Browns' histories. I mean, kicking is just not their only problem right now. So I really think that's what's going to cost some games earlier in the season, and they're just going to dump York and try to sign someone else.
I mean, not only it can cost games early in the season, but those cold late December games, when it's like, 10 to 10, and you need a game-winning field goal, and like I've said it before, Pat McAfee said it. It's harder to kick the ball in the cold because the ball gets harder, and the ball has to compact around your foot. And if Cade York isn't getting all the way through the ball, he's going to shank almost every single kick.
Yeah.
So it's
especially if it's like snowing and
Yeah.
it's windy outside and everything, like it's not going to help.
And add to that the psychological factor. I mean, he's already going to be in his head. He's already in his own head about this. I mean, there's no avoiding that as an athlete. When you have constant struggles, I mean, you're going to think about it. It's going to creep in the back. I mean,
where's Kareem Hunt when you need him?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think kickers is something that get going, quote unquote. I think as a kicker, it's per situation with each kick as itself in its own right. I don't think you just can, as a kicker, look at all your kicks and say, yeah, maybe if you're Justin Tucker, but I think in Cade York's case, he needs to take each kick one at a time, get out of his head, and just start making them. Just start making some. Build some confidence making them.
Have you considered a foray into being a kicking coach? I mean, just make them is excellent advice. I'd never really.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is he makes them in practice. He makes them in pregame. He makes them without the rush.
Of course.
What I'm saying is just get out your head, and when the game calls you to make a kick, do what you've been doing your entire life. We're not asking him to build it.
It's a confidence issue, honestly. I think there's something wrong in it, like something happened in his mind where because at LSU, most accurate kicker in the country, hitting 60-yard field goals. In the preseason last year was great. In the first regular season game, first NFL game, he makes a 58-yard game winner. And then all of a sudden next week, missed extra point versus the Jets. Missed more. Last year he missed 8 field goals. And ever since then, he just hasn't been the same. He can still hit him in practice, but when he goes out there for the game, I don't know if he's just not confident in himself.
He can't make the jump. He can't make the jump from the college level to the NFL. And some players can't do that, but kickers, you think it'd be easier.
I was talking.
Failed, it kind of broke him. Like his first couple misses last year, it seems like it kind of broke him, and he hasn't been able to get it back. I was talking.
Yeah, I was talking with my dad, and my dad was like, at this point, you just got to get the misses out of the head. My dad's like, if I was the holder, he'd be like, hey, yo, so what are you having for breakfast later? Sit hike and just snap the ball, like just say something to him. Take his mind completely off the field goal. Yeah,
make him. Yeah, that's.
Well,
I agree. I mean, he needs confidence and work on being consistent. I mean, confidence goes a long way in whatever sport you play.
And I agree with Hoodie Jello. Get him some kicks with some pressure. I mean, hold some brooms up in front of him. I mean, get him a rush. I mean, I don't know if has he seen a significant rush yet? I don't know in the preseason this year.
I mean, nobody rushes in the preseason.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to rush in the preseason. Nobody.
No.
Well, listen, I don't want to take too much time with him. I do want to I want to ask you about this other guy on the Browns while we still have some time. It's their quarterback DTR. Well, first of all, did anybody else have anything else to say about Cade York?
Well, I did. I wanted to talk about how the Browns had restructured Njoku's contract, and earlier in the week, Myles Garrett's contract. So, listen, I don't know if they're thinking about making a move at kicker. I don't know if there's too dramatic of a move you could really make at kicker right now. There are a few free agents available, and we talked about the Chargers maybe having a kicking battle, and someone could come available there. But listen, the Browns have $37.5 million in cap space. It's tops in the NFL. They have more room than anybody. Let me just ask you, before we move on, if they bring in a kicker, do you guys have any thoughts or any favorites or just any idea who it might be?
Cameron Dicker from the Chargers.
Okay.
He's their starting kicker, isn't he?
No, him and Dustin Hopkins are competing right now in training camp, and they've both been making about 85+% of their field goals from what I've seen. And either one of those dudes, I think, would be a great pickup. Whoever gets cut there.
I do think Hopkins is going to stay with the Chargers because he's been with them for so long. I know he had an injury last year, but
that's the only reason they brought in Dicker was because.
But I don't see the injury really affecting him that much this season. I mean, besides Justin Tucker, he was probably one of the top 3 kickers in the league last year.
I mean, Hoodie Jello said Mason Crosby and Robbie Gold are still available.
Well, I've been looking at Robbie Gold. Robbie Gold kicked for 10 seasons in Chicago. He knows about cold weather. He knows about wind, right? And he's 86.9%. Hold on, Jackson. 86.9% of his field goals he's made in his career. I mean, I don't know if he's just, I don't know if it's a money issue. I don't know why Chicago. I'm not sure what happened there, but I think it'd be a good pickup for this team.
I mean, he's definitely underrated for sure. And Crosby, he was. I mean, he's hit or miss. I feel like he's so streaky. Like he'll just make field goals consistently week in and week out, and then he'll just struggle week in and week out. So that's kind of like. You're kind of rolling the dice at that point if you try to get Crosby, I think.
My thing with bringing in a kicker right now is it's too late to bring in a kicker for competition. Final cuts are in less than 2 weeks now. You can't – if you're bringing in a kicker now, you're cutting Cade York. You're not going to let him compete for a week or two for one reason.
Yeah. I mean,
but how many That's a great point. That's a great point. And they've known. I mean, they knew that they had a problem.
Last year. But go ahead, Jackson.
Well, I was just saying they got a game left against Kansas City. Hopefully the game ends up in a way that Cade York has to make kicks to matter because I think he's going to have to play himself out of the situation. He needs like a 50-yard game against the Chiefs in Arrowhead just to let people know, hey, it's me again.
If he misses another kick versus the Chiefs, I actually think.
Yeah, now what? I was going to say.
Hold on, let Nick finish. Well, Nick, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You might be forced to make a move if he misses a kick first.
Yeah.
Then they're going to have to bring someone in. Jackson, you wanted to get to DTR. We have just a couple minutes left to talk about the Browns. What did you want to say about Dorian Thompson-Robinson?
I just like the fact that for a change in the quarterback position, I feel like the Browns have a solid guy at QB2. And I was looking at this receiver he throws to, the Austin Watkins Jr., and I just feel like the Browns, their offense is kind of getting played. But there's so much talk about Deshaun Watson and the starters and Nick Chubb. I just want to say I don't want Deshaun to get hurt.
No.
But if Deshaun gets hurt, if something happens, I think the Browns are probably in really good, better shape than people think they did.
I think they're in great shape. Listen, I don't know that DTR has done enough to pass Josh Dobbs yet. I don't know that. But he's got to be knocking on the door, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I completely agree.
Like I said, I think it was last week or a couple shows ago. If you look at every quarterback in the Browns quarterback room, all 4 that they have right now, they all play the exact same style of football.
Yeah.
Can extend plays with their feet, have incredible arms.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change the offense at all.
And we talked about how great that is for the consistency along the offensive line. When you've got 3 similar guys that you're blocking for, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, like you don't have to change the offense. You just have to simplify it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like with Watson in, you have every single play that you could ever imagine. But when but say he goes down, right? Then you got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Obviously, you're going to simplify it.
Yeah.
Or Josh Dobbs, you're going to simplify it to make it easier for them.
Same scheme.
Yeah, same scheme, just simplified. Like not as many plays, not as many, like motions and checks and stuff like that. But all the quarterbacks play the exact same. So like you said, easy for the offensive line. You're not thinking, okay, is he going to run? Is he going to sit back? Can I go down the field? Can I not?
And easy for the receivers too. I mean, you're running a route, and you
Yep.
look back, and your quarterback's not in the pocket, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. You know what I mean? Like, you got to come back, you got to find him, you got to make yourself available. It's just a lot easier when you know what a guy's going to do.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's interesting to see what the Browns are going to do here. I think, like Nick said, I think a lot of it hinges on what happens against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's going to come down to not a game-winning field goal, maybe, but a big field goal lay. I feel like it's going to come down to that. And just my thought as a Browns fan, Cade York's going to hit like a 59-yarder, right? We're all going to be like, oh, the problem's fixed. And then week 1, he'll miss 3 or something. You know what I mean? Like we'll have that false confidence because he hits a big field goal in preseason, which who really cares? But yeah, to get him going, they need to do something with his confidence. Can we move on to baseball? I want to move on to baseball because
Nope, I don't want to. Kidding.
I don't blame you. Well, and I don't blame Jackson if he doesn't want to move on to this topic either, because this is going to be a tough one.
I love this topic. I am so looking forward to this.
It's going to be fun because it's sometimes it's fun to dump on some of these franchises, and I'm a Braves
fan. I completely agree.
I like this topic, but my franchise also sucks right now too.
Yeah, we can't really say that much.
Okay, well, I'm going to be quiet then. I'll let you guys handle this because I'm a Braves fan. I don't want to be overbearing here.
Oh, come on. You're a Braves fan? What are you doing?
Since the TBS days, man, since like the late 80s. I mean, I've been there since not day one, but I've been there for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, you've been there since Chipper was there.
I've been there before that. I've been there since Dale Murphy, Odobe McDowell. I mean, come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some squads, man. Jeff Reardon was – okay, anyway.
Bandwagon. Kidding.
Speaking of early onset dementia, I'm old, okay. But what happened? What happened is, I mean, these are some of the most storied, reliable franchises in Major League Baseball. The Cardinals are down. The Mets are down. The Yankees are – well, I don't know if the Mets are storied, but the Cardinals are down. The Yankees are down. The Padres
we know the Cardinals
in the world on paper, and they're below 500, and they look like they're out of it. I mean, the Yankees are pretty much all but mathematically eliminated now from the playoffs.
We know the Cardinals issue. They don't have Yadier
What's
Molina.
the Cardinals issue?
They don't have Yadier Molina.
Yeah.
Their starting rotation is also
really
bad. And going into the year, I knew it was a problem. That's why I picked the Brewers to win the division. And
I mean, but even last year,
I saw the Cardinals downfall coming. They've been playing.
I mean, even last year with Yachty, their starting rotation wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Adam 500
has an ERA of 8.78 right now.
Yeah, Adam Wainwright is another guy who hasn't played as well either.
Yeah, like the rotation wasn't great last year. They were still over 500 with Yachty. Like it's something about Yadier Molina.
So we see Wainwright retired after this year, right? He's probably full time.
He should have retired after last year.
Maybe should have. Maybe should have. But listen, I don't blame him for not wanting to let it go. I mean, he had a fantastic career. Another guy I drafted by the Braves. I mean, I was sad to see him go. The whole JD Drew trade or whatever. I don't even know if that worked out long term for the Braves at all. Short term, it kind of did. But I remember at the time, you're always sad to see prospects go. But I remember being like a little bummed to see him go, and he's really turned into something special.
But, yeah, he's got 2 World Series rings, I think now. So yeah, he's had a great career.
And I can't remember what year it was, but do you remember the year he did everything? I mean, he was starting, closing, he was coming in middle relief, he was a spot, like he did everything in that one World Series, in that one playoff season. He was amazing.
I think it was 2011 against the Rangers.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Like looking back, sometimes when the Braves aren't in it, I stop watching, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Right.
Here's my thing with the Cardinals, though. I've seen a lot from their fans on Twitter. I kind of wanted to figure out more why, because they haven't had a losing season in over 15 years now until this season, because it's all headed towards the losing season. Their fan base is turned on their general manager because for years now it just seems like the Cardinals have been content with competing for the NL Central, and that's really it, and losing first or second round. And that seems like that's all they've been really going for, just do enough to get in. And this year it finally backfired on them because they're not doing enough to really be a title contender like they used to be in the days of Pujols, Edmonds, all those great players they used to have. They just haven't been that same team the last couple of years because they're not really going for it.
Yeah, they haven't really signed anyone. I mean, besides Arenado, they've been so like he was saying, so content on keeping their veterans. Yeah. Like they don't want to look for star-studded rookies. They just are so content and comfortable with their veterans. They don't want to do anything, and it's come back to bite them in the butt.
They're so stuck in the Cardinal way, which it did get them all this. It got them all the success that they had. But times are changing. You got to adapt. You got to be new, and it just seems like the Cardinals have failed to adapt, and that's why they.
But baseball is. I think it's one of the hardest sports. I think it's the hardest sport to build a team in. To be honest with you. it's so subjective, and I just you don't really ever know what you're going to get out of a guy. I mean, the Mets went out and spent all the money on Verlander and Scherzer, and I mean, granted they're older, but they've been so consistent. And look what the Mets got out of those two this year. I mean, basically nothing.
The Mets are, I think, were the worst disappointment out of any team in the MLB this year. I mean, you sign 2 Cy Young Award winners. You signed 2 World Series champions. They were both on the same team in Detroit when their starting rotation was just lights out.
Unbelievable.
And like you said, they're getting up there in age, but I mean, they still have what it takes to be on a championship team, and it just didn't work. I mean, if you watch the Mets games, like the highlights now, there's literally nobody in the stands in the Big Apple. Like nobody wants to go and watch them play, and it's been a big disappointment. And like even with like Pete Alonso, like had a great when he first started out, but all he's doing is just hitting home runs now. Besides that, he doesn't get on base.
Well, and listen, part of that this year, he took a ball off the wrist against the Braves a while back in the summer, and I think that's really affected him. I think he's noticeably looked different since then. I mean, even since he came, and now he's starting to warm up a little bit now.
Jackson, what were you going to say?
I have to disagree with that as far as the Mets being the biggest disappointment. Like, I understand why on the surface people would say that, but the biggest disappointment in New York City is the Yankees, because the expectation level is much greater than the Mets fans have for the Mets.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time we've watched the Mets float for whatever reason. But what the Yankees are doing right now is historically, it's almost like it goes back decades. It's like 1982. The current losing streak they're on right now hasn't happened since I was about 8 years old or 7.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the year my wife was born, man. They've lost 9 straight. They haven't done it since 1982. I mean,
it was so bad. Like they lost the game last night to the Nationals, 2-1, and their one hit was a home run, and it came in the 3rd inning. And Carlos Rodon was pitching, and he's struggling since coming back from injury, but he actually pitched a decent game, 6 runs, 6 innings, 1 run. You know. Yeah. So
did you know
the fact that they lose out of the Nationals is crazy.
Did you know during this losing streak they scored 13 runs, and that's the same amount of home runs they've allowed?
And they're batting $176. They're batting $176.
So listen, Jackson, as a Yankees fan, I'm not even going to ask you. And listen, I saw Hoodie Jello a minute ago. Well, okay, that's a take. I saw a minute ago one I couldn't agree with more. He said Buck Showalter's not the guy the Mets need running the ship there, and I couldn't agree with that more. Buck Showalter is the wrong guy for the Mets. But as a Yankees fan, Jackson, I want to ask you real quick, man. When Aaron Boone gets fired, do they bring Joe Girardi back?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, at least under Joe Girardi, he understands.
Yeah, like, dude, like.
Go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead. Oh, no, I was going to let you finish. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he understands the Yankee way. He's been there.
Yeah.
He's got the ring. It's like Hoodie Jello just said Joe Torre, and I mean, he's probably too old, but we need a guy that understands, like what I said earlier, what it means to be in the pinstripes. It's not just a job to be the manager there. It's not just any other job. You know what I mean? Like,
well, listen, I think if you want to get that offense on track, I think a name that I've been hearing a lot is Troy Snitker, okay? The Astros hitting coach, Brian Snitker, Atlanta's manager's son, right? I've been hearing a lot about Troy Snitker, and I saw you kind of you tilted your head, Jackson. Why did you do that?
Well, it's like, does he understand? Like, I'm not talking stats, I'm not talking numbers, I'm talking culture, philosophy, talking story. Does he get it?
Well, if you're talking family track record, I mean, listen, Brian Snitker's been in the Atlanta organization for over 40 years. He's a guy who, quote unquote, I'll put him in there. He gets it, right? I don't know. I mean, Snitker obviously has never been involved with the Yankees, but I feel like Troy Snitker would be a guy who would be smart enough to maybe take that job as the Yankees manager and bring in, I don't know, Jorge Posada as the bench coach, right? Like somebody that, like you said, knows what it's like to be in the pinstripe. Somebody that can be kind of a consultant for him, a go-between from the front office to him, a go-between from the front office to the players. I think like a conglomerate like that could work for the Yankees. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I'm just I'm reading some of these comments, And Hoodie Jello said the Yankee way pretty much is $220 million budget, 95 plus wins, ALCS exit. I don't want to get into that. But what I will say, you reminded me of something. How come the Yankees aren't reaching out to former Yankees? Understandably, get it, got it. Yeah. They all know what it means to be there.
Yeah, don't bring in Jeter in the ownership group. No, don't do that.
Question about Boone. Don't you think Boone would be a guy
Miami's
that
winning. Miami's winning. When Jeter got there, he blew the whole thing up entirely. Now they're winning.
Yeah, but in spite of what he did.
Yeah.
Does that
Nick,
make
what
sense?
were you saying?
Like, yeah.
Don't you think that Boone is a guy that knows what he played for the Yankees. He had a game-winning home run to send them to the World Series. You would think he's a guy that knows what it means to be a Yankee.
I mean, yeah, but
Nick, he's lost that team.
But he's proving otherwise.
I think it comes down on Cashman. Their roster structure is horrible. They're so unathletic. They have got aging players who are just falling off a cliff on bad contracts. They passed on star players like Bryce Harper and all these Manny Machado.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stanton. They passed on all these star players, and I think it falls on Cashman way more than Boone.
Yeah, and they've signed people.
Hold on. You guys are competing. Hold on.
I was just going to say, Stanton and they signed people like Stanton and Rizzo, who are so hot with their other teams, and now they haven't been able to hit the ball to save their lives. I mean, those are two stars and free agents that they signed that haven't performed to their standards.
Yeah.
You know?
Boy, Stanton's really going rough over his last 120 games or so, man. It's really bad.
I don't think it's Boone's fault that the Yankees can't hit. The Yankees just can't hit. That's their problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think that falls on Aaron Boone. I really think the hitting is the problem.
Yeah. So I think that's why you bring in. I think that's why you bring in a guy like Troy Snitker. I think he can. He's like the bat whisperer, man. I've heard David Cohn too, but David Cohn doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, it made it sound like I said Troy Snitker was like Batman or something. That's not what I meant. But hey, he's not Bruce Wayne. But I think that's a good. I think that could be a good look for the Yankees. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there.
As a Yankee fan, I think Boone could have taken his job had they not this tailspin out of control here in the past few weeks. Yeah. I think the streak is going to be the reason he does get fired this year, or at least deserves to get fired. Yeah. We knew they weren't going to make the playoff. We knew that a month ago. Right?
Well, listen. Yeah, and after a decade of Joe Girardi, after 1,000 wins, he averaged 100 wins a season. You know, the Yankees let him go.
And you fire him.
Yeah, in my mind, Boone is completely gone. And it's not his fault. I agree with Nick. It's on Cashman. It's on player development. Now, obviously, they've got some problems within the clubhouse. I mean, they've got some issues within that organization that, they may need to blow the whole thing up and just start it completely over.
Okay, yeah, it's basically Aaron Judge and the Yankees. That's what it is right now. Because without Judge, they were nothing.
They have no depth in that team at all. I've been saying this for the past couple of years. They have 3 good hitters. The rest of the lineup just isn't there compared to the rest of these teams in the AL. And it's because they haven't had prospects coming up and making them better. It's because they've missed on free agent signings. They've gone after aging veterans. And it just seems like their whole philosophy is just flawed and not what it used to be in New York.
Yeah. But Chad, like I was saying earlier before the show, there's a difference in losing games and when you're trying hard and you get beat. Then there's a way you're not trying and you get beat. Yeah. And I think this 9 in a row streak historic, it's telling you. Yeah. Those numbers are telling you or lack of look at.
Yeah, guys are looking forward to vacation, I think, for sure. Yeah. And Hoodie Jello, that's a great point. Rizzo's concussion and like the whole whatever happened there. I mean,
how do you not know he has a concussion?
Everything,
you get tested like every day.
Everything from the top down, almost from day one this season for the Yankees, has been mismanaged. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Well, it sounds like possibly as an organization they got lazy on who they are, and it's almost like it's like this: you wake up, I'm a Yankee, and I don't have to put much work in because I'm a Yankee. That's not how this works.
Nope.
You got to live up to that. You got to live up to that logo.
Not when you live in the same neighborhood as the Orioles, the Rays. That division it's on fire.
Those guys play hard. You know why? They're not the Yankees.
Right.
Baltimore plays hard. Toronto plays hard. They all play so hard because they're not the Yankees.
Yep. So we'll see. I think that they're going to make changes. Like, listen, they're going to be. I don't want to say wholesale changes, but there are going to be a lot of changes in that organization. I think come December, January, February. I think we're going to hear a lot of mix-ups. But listen, I want to get to Players' facial hair.
Yeah.
I know, right? I mean, it's
I
so
agree.
antiquated. Let the guy grow a beard. Man. Yeah.
Who cares?
Who does care anymore? It's so antiquated. It's so
Oh,
ridiculous.
you can have a mustache, but you can't have a beard.
Yeah.
You can have a mustache, but you can't have a beard.
Who's in charge here? Tony La Russa? It's ridiculous. Like, come on. Speaking of early onset dementia. Anyway, I want to get over to maybe my favorite part of the year. I love the beginning of the college football season, man. Like the NFL's cool. I like the Browns. Whatever. That's fine. But man, I'm an Ohio State fan, and I love college football. And guys, it's week 0, man. Like we're coming up on we have no more Saturdays for a long time without college football, and that's amazing.
Thank gosh.
Right? It's amazing.
I was so sad when the season. I was so sad when college football ended.
I don't like that stretch between like rivalry week and like the playoffs because it's like there's almost no more meaningful football. You know what I mean? The 1 or 2 or 3 games. That's it.
Why do we
You
need
know?
a month in between rivalry week and the playoff? Why do we need a whole month?
I guess they got to play the conference game, and I guess maybe because they have winter break. I have no idea. I mean, it doesn't make sense either, but.
Well, I think a lot of it is academic. I think they give there's that time for those guys to kind of wrap up their academic things from the fall semester, fall quarter, whatever the school's on. I think there's that time that they need that administrative time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason for that. And it should be. I mean, they are student athletes. I know they're getting paid. They get the NIL. Ben calls them professionals. That's fine. You know, we're at odds about that. But, yeah, it's no big deal. I mean, I think they need that time for their schoolwork, but it's whatever. And listen, since we're going to preview the Buckeyes, I have questions. I have a lot of questions, and I want you guys to answer them for me.
I might have answers.
I have
I
answers for you. I'm ready.
I really hope you do. So listen, when we go to watch, week 1 for us as Buckeyes fans, I think we're all Buckeyes fans here, right?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay, cool. Buckeyes fan.
I got the sweatshirt here.
Nice. There you go. See, I got my Undisputed Champ shirt. We're good.
Nice.
I knew we'd spend some time on it today. But yeah, so week 1 it's not week 1, but it's week 1 for the Buckeyes. Who's going to be the starting quarterback in Indiana?
I follow a guy on TikTok who used to be on Urban Meyer's staff. He's still close with the staff at Ohio State currently.
Is it Zach Smith?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he currently says that he does not think he thinks it'll be not Kyle. He thinks it'll be not Kyle McCord, but the other guy. I can't think of his name. Devin Brown. And he genuinely said that if Devin Brown isn't playing well, he goes, don't be scared to just see Ryan Day flip flop. He said because the offense doesn't miss a beat with whoever's in, and I know it's not Ohio State, but we talked about Bama not naming a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And some guy said it's because they're all good, and the offense is efficient under both of them. So if the offense is efficient under both of them, if one of them's playing bad, just plug in the other one. It's not going to change. Yeah. I mean, but obviously you'd like to have like a solidified starter so you can have some consistency. Yeah. But if one's not playing good and the other one can come right in and just do the exact same, I don't think there's really a difference on who starts or.
Yeah, and I think it goes to what you said earlier with the Browns. I think if you've got 2 guys that play pretty similar styles, I know one's a little more mobile than the other, but as long as they play pretty similar styles, same type of arm, make all the throws, whatever, I don't think there's a huge difference. But Jackson, what were you going to say?
I see Kyle McCord as a pocket passer.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Devin Brown as somebody that's more versatile, more mobile. Yeah. And I'm thinking they're going to have that situation the Browns had last year when they won a flip-flop. It's like one guy is more prone to stay in the pocket, and then all of a sudden you got to bring the other guy in for whatever reason. Well, that guy is more prone to run. It's like I don't think they're being honest, or we haven't seen them in the line of fire when it's going to matter how different they really are.
It could be coach speak. Yeah.
I really think that, like for me, everyone's like, "Oh, we don't know who Ohio State's quarterback's going to be this year." I'm not worried. Every guy Ryan Day plugs in, throws 40 touchdowns. Like,
yeah.
So I'll be confident no matter who they name. But at this point, everything I'm hearing is like, "Oh, they can't." Like they're not. Neither one's separating themselves. They're both really good. They're both playing really well.
And that's why.
That's why I think they should go with the younger guy in Devin Brown, who's only a sophomore. Because if he's already on McCord's level a year younger, then imagine what he's going to be as a junior or as a senior. So I would go with the younger guy who's going to be here longer.
I also think that, me and Jam were talking about the other day, though. We have that Air Nolan guy who's going to come in next year. He's going to start as a freshman. I'm sorry. But so even if you throw in Kyle McCord, Devin Brown's going to transfer probably because Air Nolan is like – Zach Smith spoke highly. Ryan Day spoke highly. Like
he's not getting benched. If Devin Brown wins the Heisman this year, he's not getting benched.
Devin Brown's
I
not winning
don't think
the
we can say no
Heisman.
one
I'm
automatically
sorry.
starts as a freshman, but I don't know if we can automatically say that. I don't know.
Devin Brown's not winning the Heisman. I can tell you that.
Well,
Yeah,
The only guy that has a chance of winning the
fantastic
Heisman is Marvin Harrison.
Hey, somebody clip that. Old takes exposed. Someone clip that. Okay?
Only guy that has a chance of winning the Heisman Trophy on Ohio State is Marvin Harrison Jr.
That's fair. And I almost think that I don't know if a receiver's ever going to win the Heisman again.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, with Ohio State's schedule, I mean, you really could, like, in a sense, because you have those games that are out of conference and, like, you face nobody's the first 3 weeks. So if you switching Brown and McCord, that's perfectly fine because then you get a real feel of what they're like in real game situation. I mean, they got Indiana, which, I mean, might be tough because it's on the road, but let's be honest, it's Indiana. And then you got Youngstown State and Western Kentucky. Those 3 games are really going to determine who is going to face Notre Dame because Notre Dame is going to be their toughest opponent until they face Michigan. So, I mean, I think those first 3 games are really going to test them out to see who is really going to get the starting job after those 3 weeks.
My problem with that is we saw in 2015, Cardale and JT, Urban could not make up his mind through the first couple weeks. Honestly, throughout the whole season, he never really made up his mind. I don't like the 2 quarterback system. I think it creates.
I don't love it. I agree with you, Jackson. I agree with you, Nick. But the only difference there is they were 2 completely different guys, man.
Yes, they were
completely different guys. That I think made a continuity issue for the offense. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and like people always talk about, like, oh, would Ohio State have won the national championship if we had GT Barrett? Yes. Would we have won if we had Cardale Jones? Yes. But the reason is because we had 6 weeks to prepare with Cardale Jones. We literally changed the offense to a run and guns type offense where we air the ball out 40 times a game. Yeah. If we had JT Barrett, I still think we win it. But it's just
I'm not saying,
but like Nick said earlier.
Listen, Wisconsin was not ready for that either.
Every quarterback that Ryan Day has thrown out has been elite. So I'm not scared who he picks or whoever he picks, I'm going to be confident in his choice because every quarterback he's had has been elite.
Okay.
And is wrong to get drafted.
I agree with that. But one, it's always good to know who your guy is. Like, who's the guy? You know what I mean? It's great to have all QBs that all can be QB1. But who is the damn QB1?
Yeah, and I think that's important. But also you have now, you've got a season where you've got leaders and receivers this year. Like Marvin Harrison is what he is.
You're not wrong.
Emeka Egbuka is more of a vocal leader. I don't think your quarterback always has to be the guy that steps up and leads, but I think you want him to be that guy, right? Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's a little weird. But listen, speaking of elite quarterbacks, I want to ask you guys a question, okay? And Jackson, I want to start with you on this one. Is this the year that C.J. Stroud finally gets some credit from Buckeyes fans? When we watch, Kyle McCord or Devin Brown or whoever it is go out there and maybe struggle a little bit, does Stroud finally get some credit for what he did here?
We always look back. It's like a girlfriend you had, and she was great. Things didn't work out, and then you try to move on, and it's like everybody you meet is not what you had, and you realize, you realize how awesome
was QB1.
You know what I mean? I think that's the case. We're going to be missing not just Stroud, but we're going to be talking about so many of the old QBs from Ohio State.
Yeah, but
I still say, like what Ben was saying, they're all good, and we can trust who gets put out there.
Yeah.
I think by week 5, we may not be thinking about C.J. Stroud anymore. Yeah. That's very possible.
Okay. Well, Ben, in the early going, do you think we finally give C.J. Stroud his due? I mean, he deserved a lot of credit for what he did here.
Yes and no, because like I said, every quarterback Ryan Day has thrown out has been elite.
Yeah.
Like they came to the season like, oh, this guy, doesn't look, he looks, the offense is going to be good, but then he comes out and throws for 40, 50 touchdowns, and people are like, oh, my God, this guy's the next best Ohio State quarterback, and then he gets drafted a year later.
Yeah, so and Hoodie Jello said it right there. I think that's – and spoiled just in general. I think spoiled just in general are the people who hate on a guy like C.J. Stroud. I mean, he did everything you want from a quarterback, and I think it was pretty obvious he was asked not to run, right? Because you saw what happened in the Georgia game. They let him loose. And I mean, it was a completely different offense. So maybe that's the reason you go with a guy like, maybe that's the reason you go with a guy like Devin Brown this year, just because you see what that can unlock. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, Nick, I wanted to get your thought on that too. Do you think Stroud finally gets credit?
Yeah, to me, it all depends on how the next guy plays. If the next guy comes in and struggles a little bit, then we can know that it's not really it's not Ryan Day's offense that made C.J. Stroud great. It's C.J. Stroud that made C.J. Stroud great. But if Devin Brown comes in and almost wins the Heisman, then I think we might have some conversation that Ohio State might just be a system team, or they just always happen to have a really, really.
I do want to say one thing before it is a new play caller.
Mhm.
It's now
Yeah.
Brian Hartline. It's no longer Ryan Day. So
Yeah.
I mean, if he's not elite this year, give him one more year in the. If Devin Brown does start, give him one more year in Brian Hartline's offense, and he could be elite. Like I said, it's a whole new play caller.
Yeah. Speaking of one more year, Jared, I want to ask you this. Let's start with you. How much does the defense improve this year?
They've improved tremendously, and that's what really going to be a key that we're going to look to this season, because last year our defense was atrocious. Our defense primarily is atrocious, and that's Ohio State generally, especially in their last few years as a team, they've been a second half team. Like the defense always struggles, and then the offense doesn't pick up the weight, and then they always wake up by the second half. And with the new play caller this year, we'll see how either Devin Brown, McCord, or whoever starts for Ohio State adjusts from half to half with play calls, and really see if the defense can pick him up, whoever that quarterback is, and the offense can do the same for their defense. Whether that's they get an interception or a forced fumble. But we've done a lot of great signings this year, so it's going to be interesting to see if they really show up. But I mean, we got it on paper. Now we just got to see it live.
They've got plenty of talent. I mean, Sonny Styles, Lathan Ransom, and Jahad Carter, back in the defensive backfield. I think those guys are interchangeable. You can kind of mix them up and change roles.
And
sometimes it's confusing when you see a guy lined up at free safety and they at the nickel back and they at strong. It can be confusing for a quarterback. I mean, you see a guy all over the field, like, where is he? You know what I mean?
And J-Mo mentioned it earlier. I also think it all depends on how good Tommy Eichenberg does, our middle linebacker, because he's the leader of that defense. If he plays elite like he did last year, this defense can go as far as he can take him.
Yeah, and they finally, it looks like they have some linebacker depth now as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like they've got some guys they can rotate in there.
And if Eichenberg isn't great, I don't think the defense is going to be great. I think it all revolves around him because he's that leader in the defensive backfield.
That's fair. That's fair. But listen, for me, the questions for me are these are the two questions, and they're really, really big ones, right? Can the defensive line consistently get to the quarterback? Can they cause some pressure? Can they get the quarterback out of the pocket? I mean, obviously you don't want to let a quarterback stand back there and pick you apart, right? They don't have the defensive backfield. They don't have the recent track record of having the defensive backfield to do that. Can those guys get to the quarterback? I mean, can Jack Sawyer and can these guys finally make that splash? I mean, they're going to have to do that, right?
What I'm trying to say is that we've had a lot of high-level recruits now that have not broken out yet. The first couple of years they kind of struggled. Like Denzel Burke has gotten a lot of hate from the fan base because as a true freshman, he got thrust into the #1 corner spot, and he struggled. He struggled last year, big time. Yeah. Can he finally take the next step? Sonny Styles, can he take the next step? Tommy Eichenberg improved a lot last year, but can he really put together a strong senior season this year? Jack Sawyer, another big-time pass rush recruit, he hasn't done it yet, but he was expected to do it. So if these guys can take that next step this year as upperclassmen, which a lot of times that's when players do take that next step, this defense has a chance to be special.
Now, as far as defensive line goes, I want to talk about the defensive tackles because that's been a concern. That's been a concern, I think, in Columbus for quite some time. JTT had a good game against Penn State. You remember? I mean, it was unbelievable. He flashed. I mean, unbelievable skills, right? Do you think we see more consistency on that end, or more consistency on the other end, where he kind of went away for 4 or 5 games?
As much as I hate to say it, I think it. As much as it not being talent-wise, I think most of it now is Larry Johnson. He's getting older. He's ran the same system for his whole time at Ohio State. Has never changed, never been innovate. He's never wanted to change or anything like that. And I think as long as his system is the same, I think you're going to see the same exact production that you've seen the last 3 or 4 years.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I don't know why you expect anymore. Yeah.
I don't care if you go out and you get the top 2 defensive tackles and the top 2 defensive ends.
Yeah.
As long as he runs that classic 4-3 look where you only rush 4 or 5, it's not going to change because you're not going to get enough pressure.
Yeah, they're going to have to they're going to have to set up some creative blitz packages. They're going to have to do something.
And he hasn't done that.
No.
That's the thing. I get, we brought in, what's it?
And
The defensive coordinator. What's his name?
Jim Knowles.
Yeah, Knowles. His whole scheme at his old school was blitz, blitz, blitz. It gives your secondary a chance to make plays. And when you're not blitzing, if you're only rushing 4, you're expecting them to cover for 8 to 9 seconds.
Ben, it's a great point. Listen, so so you say like you don't want to do that at a place like Ohio State because they don't have the cornerbacks, they don't have the defensive backfield. How'd they do it at Oklahoma State? I mean, they had 2- and 3-star guys back there.
Because they got pressure.
But I'm saying they weren't afraid to put their corners on an island, right? But we're so afraid to put our corners on an island here. Why?
We used to be cornerback.
Yeah, well, back in 2016, 17, 18, we had a first-round corner every single season.
Yeah, we had people like Denzel Ward, Eli Apple.
Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, Lattimore too.
Listen, I think Denzel Burke can be that guy. I think Burke can be that guy this year.
He's got to lead in that secondary.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're scared to do it. I'm just saying we haven't done it because of Larry Johnson. He doesn't want to. He doesn't like blitzing his defensive line. He likes getting those stud defensive ends that can take guys one-on-one, and we never have good inside pressure. If we get good inside pressure, then yes, we can do that where you blitz and you leave your corners on an island. But we
goes to recruiting defensive tackles. Listen.
Exactly.
That goes to recruiting
we haven't had a good defensive
Let me tell you this. Hold on, Ben. Listen. Do you guys know when the last second-round pick at defensive tackle was for Ohio State, or who it was?
No.
It was Jonathan Hankins in 2013. Okay. Their last first-rounder. You guys don't know this, Steelers fans. Cameron Hayward in 2011. That's too long for a place like Ohio State to not have a first or second round defensive tackle.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What's his first name? Paul on the D tackle. He had a pretty good season last year. I really like him.
Yeah, they've got some talent. I mean, they show some flashes, but other
than that, it was not a D tackle last year.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to improve on the line for sure. I mean, we've had great defensive ends go in the draft, like the Bosa brothers. Young. So, I mean, we got the end part. We just got to get the whole line in sync.
Yeah.
And they got to change something because what they're doing now isn't working. And hopefully they do change something in their playbook and it just ultimately the stats show it, Yeah.
I mean, Jackson, what were you going to say?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what type of team are we looking at this year? Is this a 1-loss team? Is this a 2-loss team, or is this a 3-loss team?
It all depends on how good the defense plays.
Huh?
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's how it's going to come down.
It's all good. Here's the thing: they could be undefeated. They could be undefeated. They could be a 1-loss team. They could be a 2-loss team. They could be a 3-loss team. It all depends on how good the defense plays.
I thought you were going to go all the way to 12. I didn't know what you were going to do.
No. It all depends on how good the defense plays.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's going to be on the quarterback. And listen, I think a big thing is keeping running backs healthy too.
Yeah. Injuries are going to come up.
We do have a deep running back room, though.
We do, but we had a deep running back. We had a deep running back room last year, and we had wide receivers taking snaps at the end of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
Is Ohio State the best team in the Big Ten?
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
yes and no.
Yes and no.
They're like.
We're saying yes. We're saying yes, but the team that I feel like Michigan is, it's like, how are we the best, but we don't? The guys that technically are the best.
That's good. That's going to be their only obstacle because honestly, their schedule I don't think is that tough. I mean, besides Notre Dame, I mean, Michigan is going to be their only obstacle. Like I do think they're either going to be a 1-loss or a 2-loss team this year, and hopefully they still get into the playoff. But realistically, a Big Ten opponent, don't take it lightly. Like usually the Big Ten conference is better in football than other conferences like the Pac-12 or the Big 12, but
the Pac-5.5.
Yeah, right. But at the end of the day, it's like I think those 2 games are really going to determine if they're a national championship team or not. And
do you guys know the stretch I'm worried about actually of the schedule? It's okay, so there's a weird stretch where they play Penn State, right? And then afterwards they have to go on the road to play Wisconsin. I think that's going to be a tough spot. But even before the Penn State, if you back up a little bit, they play Purdue on the road. And listen, man, like I have watched Ohio State long enough to know that they struggle with Purdue for some reason. Purdue doesn't even have to have a talented team for Ohio State to struggle. It's just they have these like uncharacteristic struggles against Purdue. I've seen it all my life. So I'm worried about that. Purdue, number 7 Penn State, and then on the road at Camp Randall against Wisconsin. I'm worried about that stretch of the schedule.
we always lose to a team that is like a nobody. Like we lost like a few years ago, we lost to Purdue, and then another year we lost to Iowa. Like before they got good, like just random teams that don't really have good records. So hopefully that doesn't happen for them this season. With Purdue or Wisconsin, like you said, could be a loss for them. But they've usually had Penn State's number. I mean, I'm not really worried about Penn State, but I mean, anything can happen. It's Big Ten football.
Yeah, I think Penn State's year is probably next year. You know,
I think with Ohio State being the best team in the Big Ten this year, we had beating Michigan. The last couple of years, we got absolutely shredded by Michigan's run game. That is what has absolutely killed us. It all comes down to the defense. If we can stop Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, we can beat Michigan. Because I'm not scared of J.J. McCarthy. I'm not scared of any of the receivers that Michigan has. So if we can stop Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, then we will beat Michigan. We just have to.
They're gonna have to keep the safeties on the field to do that. They're gonna have to be somewhere on the field. Because, man, last year,
I don't get it.
I mean, Donovan Edwards was running in a giant boxing glove cast, and we couldn't.
Also, not only like even if we can't contain the run, as an offense, you have to strike and strike quickly. If you can't contain the run,
I agree. Jackson, what were you going to say real quick? Hold on, Ben. Jackson, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I don't feel confident in that Michigan game. I honestly feel like that's a loss for the Bucs. I mean, it might be pretty mature, but the reason I see that is that Michigan offense in the backfield was low, returning, and we just sat up and gave a good 10 minutes to how lack of attack like the defensive front is for Ohio State.
Yeah.
I just see that matchup there. I see us getting ran over.
Yeah, I mean, they wore down the defensive tackles last year, and I think they can easily do it again this year. I mean, that's something to worry about. Listen, Hoodie Jello brought up a great point about Penn State, and it goes to my point. He said we never blow out Penn State, and they never do. The Buckeyes never really run away from Penn State, right? It's always a physical, like psychological matchup, and that's why, like I said, that next week you go on the road at Camp Randall. That's a tough place to play. I mean, that could be like, a quote unquote letdown game or whatever you want to call it. I just worry about that stretch, and then like you said, you've got Michigan. So I'm a Buckeyes fan. I know it sounds outlandish, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them go anywhere from 12-0 to 8-4.
That's exactly right. I totally agree.
I don't think they go 8-4. I think lowest they go is 9-3. But
yeah, probably, but I could see it.
When's the last time they even had a 4-loss season? I mean, you got to go back to the archive.
Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell, 6-6.
Yeah.
Luke Fickell, 6-6.
Technically, that was 2011. Yeah, but yeah, the Fickell year, yeah. Yep. And 6-7 technically because they went and lost to Florida in the whatever. That doesn't matter. They had to play that meaningless bowl game, right? Like, they could have self-imposed. Okay, let's not go. We're not going to talk about that. I want to ask you guys. We only have a couple of minutes. I can't believe it's time to get out of here already, man. This has been fun. I wish we had another hour to talk about the Buckeyes, but I want to go right in order. I just want to go Jared, Nick, Ben, Jackson, and then nobody cares about me, so I'll go last. Do the Buckeyes have a shot at the title this year? Can they win a national title?
No.
Okay.
As of right now, no.
Okay. Nick, what do you think?
Absolutely, they do because they're Ohio State. They have top 3 talent in the country, and they're in the playoff almost every single season.
Okay. Ben?
Yes, but I'm gonna say it all depends on how well the defense plays.
Yeah.
We know our offense is gonna be elite no matter who's at quarterback.
Yep. Jackson,
no matter who's at quarterback, our offense is gonna be elite.
True.
I absolutely agree that they have a shot at the title, but I don't agree with them actually winning the title. I know I sound in the middle of the road, but okay, put it this way. If you're asking me Ohio State or the field, I'm going with the field.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, that's fair. And Hoodie Jello says he's going to go an 18 to 24% chance, kind of a coin flip. I agree. I think it's an odd situation that they're in, right? Because they're one of the top 3 or 4 talented teams in the country. There's no questioning that. But it feels like so many things have to go right for them to even be in the playoffs. It's one of those weird seasons where it's like you expect 12-0, but it's almost like you could understand 9-3. You know what I mean? So I think that over/under for wins is like 9.5 for this year. I think I would go over. I think, but the running backs have to stay healthy. We got to get something out of the defensive line, and we need the defensive backfield to wake up and I don't know, stay with plays. I don't know, just the simple
I
basic.
really think you guys are sleeping on them a little bit. I think this defense now, with a lot of upperclassmen, these guys have been underclassmen playing a lot of meaningful snaps, and now they're upperclassmen. A lot of development happens when you become an upperclassman. They're expected to be leaders now. And I think with that development, if they can just step up, this defense has a chance to be good. And we know how good the offense can be.
Yeah.
It just matters whether these upperclassmen can step up and really be leaders on defense.
I agree. And I think the play calling has to change too. I'm excited to see what Brian Hartline brings to the table. And I'm excited to see Ryan Day with a little bit more freedom to maybe work with his quarterbacks as opposed to being so wrapped up in the in-game stuff on offense, you know?
And I want to say this right now. I know we lost to Georgia, but yes, I know Stetson Bennett threw for, almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, but I think that's the most consistent defense I've seen us play in probably the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, listen, Georgia was going to have plenty of chances. The Buckeyes were going up and down the field and scoring too. I mean, you put the defense out there a lot, people are going to score. I mean, it happens. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The defense is going to get tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you give Jim, you like Nick said, you give Jim Knowles a second year with all these guys that were underclassmen playing meaningful snaps. You give him a second year to design some incredible plays. Like Nick said, I think the defense can be good. It's just a matter of it all depends on. I guess I'll say this: it all depends on the defensive line. If the defensive line plays great, our defense is going to be probably middle of the pack towards top of the pack.
Top 10, I would think.
If our defensive line plays below average, we're going to be a below average defense.
They're mid. They're very mid. Yeah, it depends. I think it all hinges on the defensive line. I think they've got the talent in the defensive backfield. I think it says something to me that Cam Martinez has kind of been passed up on the depth chart. But that's okay. That's okay. That means they've got some young guys that are available and ready to do it. But hey, guys, like I said, I can't believe it's time to get out of here already. Listen, I think we have a team, us right here, Jared, Nick, me, Ben, Jackson. If we stay healthy, I think we can win a national title, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about health, man. We'll see what our defensive line does. But hey, guys, listen, this has been another episode of Come On Ref. We appreciate you guys watching so much. Just please remember, like, subscribe, share, comment, yell at us, report us for spam, scam, and deset. We don't care. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week, guys.